2020 Democratic presidential hopefuls will take to the Iowa State Fair starting Thursday. In between greeting fairgoers, sampling corn dogs, pork chops on a stick, and posing with the fair's famed butter cow, candidates will also take to the Des Moines Register's political soapbox. According to the paper, more than 20 Democratic and Republican presidential candidates will deliver speeches. One of those candidates is Democrat Marianne Williamson. She is scheduled to speak on Friday afternoon, but joins me now on set here in New York. Marianne, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we are speaking at a time where the issue of gun legislation is very much top of mind for many Americans. If elected as president, what would you do to combat this spate of mass shootings?
Well, every time there's a mass shooting, we go through this, don't we? But there does seem like this might be different this time. And certainly with this election season upon us, all of the Democrats are speaking with somewhat of a chorus. I want universal background checks. I want to close the loopholes, the boyfriend loopholes and the gun show loopholes. We need to get rid of bump stocks. They should not be legal. None of these assault weapons should be legal. And then even when we renew the ban on the assault weapons, we're going to have to outlaw the bullets that are used to shoot them because so many will still be in existence. And all the other powers that are available to the president in terms of the Department of Criminal Justice, in terms of the Attorney General, in terms of outlawing guns that are imported, all the stops should be taken out so that we can now, with whatever efforts are possible, have common sense gun safety laws. The safety of our citizens, particularly our children, is obviously at stake.
President Trump said that there is no political appetite for banning assault weapons. What do you make of that?
Well, maybe there's no political appetite among his most passionate supporters, or most importantly, among his primary donors, which means most particularly the NRA, which means most particularly gun manufacturers because of the billions of dollars of profits that they make. That's what's going on here. What's going on here is that the short-term profits for gun manufacturers are placed before the safety of our citizens. And how long are the American people going to take this? This is time for the American people to awaken now and for the American people to step in.
The next president could likely have to work with a Senate that is controlled by Republicans. So how does that impact Democrats' calls and plans for gun legislation?
Well, this is exactly what I mean when I say it's time for the American people to step in. You know, the American people are simply going to have to know every time you vote for a congressperson, every time you vote for a senator, what was their rating from the NRA? Because if they don't have a D or an F, then you're voting for someone who is going to be an obstruction to common sense gun safety. You know, so much of this is because the American people, I think of these forces as opportunistic infections that could not have gotten a hold of us the way they have. And this includes gun manufacturers. Had there not been a weakened societal immune system, every citizen who has either not voted, who has been chronically disengaged from the political process, or who has acquiesced, voting for whatever other reason, to a congressman or senator or an electoral candidate who would support the NRA political agenda, has to ask themselves.
So we are about a month away from the third Democratic debates. Are you close to qualifying for the debates?
Yes, I need 16,000 more unique donors, so people can go to marianne2020.com and give even $1 if they're a unique donor.
But how do you plan to qualify? I mean, the time, certainly the clock is ticking here.
I have till August 28th, and the way things are going right now with under, I think, somewhere around 16,000, we're going to make it. People are ready for a different conversation. And I think it's, you know, I have great respect for all of the candidates. I don't think I'm running against anyone. I'm running with a lot of good people. But I think it's very healthy that so many voices are there. I think it's very healthy that so many voices are there that are not from the conventional political dialogue. So people are making that clear with their donations, and I hope that they will continue.
Can you talk about that a little bit when you say, you know, you're obviously not a conventional kind of candidate? What do you mean by that, and why do you think that's appealing for those people who are supporting you?
Well, once again, I have a lot of respect for politicians and for political experts, but there's nothing in our Constitution that says there's supposed to be this gatekeeper class. There's no mention of political parties in our Constitution. Our Constitution says the qualification for the presidency is that you were born here, that you're 35 or older, and that you have lived here for 14 years. We have this kind of political media industrial complex, you know, this idea that has been created that it is their job to tell us who's qualified. And I'm attracted to the line from Franklin Roosevelt when he said that the primary job of the presidency is not the administrative aspect. He said that's secondary. The primary aspect, he said, is moral leadership. I believe we need a political vision and moral vision now, more than we need just another political technocrat. And this is an example. The gun issue is an example. These people have not gotten it done. And it will not get done without an uprising of consciousness among the American people. And my skill set has to do with helping to harness that.
So after last week's debate, you were the top searched candidate, according to Google Trends. But a Quinnipiac University poll released Tuesday shows that you're not registering that high among Democratic voters in the polling. How do you plan to address that and increase your support?
Well, first of all, I take it with a grain of salt. And second of all, those polls are based on people who have been historically Democratic primary voters. And I think a lot of my support is from people who've not necessarily been involved because they haven't felt there was really a reason to be. So I don't feel that my poll numbers in those polls right now say that much. My heart is not saying, oh, give it up. My heart is saying, you just keep going, girl, because the poll that matters is how people are responding to you on the ground. And when I show up at events and I see bigger crowds and I know that my words are landing and I feel that I'm listened to and I know that I'm having conversations that matter, that's what matters in politics.
I still have to ask, though, I wonder if there are other candidates, when you hear them speak and you listen to sort of the message that they are bringing, are there candidates that you feel sort of more closely aligned to that you could potentially see perhaps down the line, if it should turn out this way, that would earn your endorsement?
Yeah, and there might be a couple who feel the same way about me.
Oh,
I'm not going to say any names, but yeah, I mean, you could ask them that too. So we're early, I wouldn't say we're early in the process, but we're sort of at the end of early. Mm-hmm. It's still within the phase of early.
Okay, all right, we'll check back with you on that question. So we mentioned the Iowa State Fair. What do you plan to focus on when you speak to voters there?
I open my heart and I say what I feel on any given day needs to be said. We need a fundamental disruption of the economic and social and political status quo in the United States. And we need a far more integrative approach to the possibilities of the 21st century. Even with what's going on here with the gun legislation, this is so multidimensional. We need to deal with the symptom, which is the gun violence, but we also have to deal with white nationalism. I'm the candidate who's been talking about this. I'm the candidate who's been talking about it on the debate stage, about the president having harnessed fear. I talked about in the first debate. In this one, I talked about the collectivized hatred that this man has stirred. I'm the one who's been having this conversation. So I believe that my capacity to get to the heart of the matter and get to the most relevant topics is, at this point, for a serious observer, pretty well established.
So I want to probe a little bit more because of the question of race and where we are right now in the conversation about race in this country. So you're proposing a plan to pay reparations to descendants of slaves, which would cost anywhere from $200 to $500 billion. Can you explain how that plan would work and how would you pay for that?
Well, what I propose is a reparations council that would be based, well, I've suggested 30 to 50 people from academia, culture, political leaders who have had some deep relationship with the subject of reparations. Professor Sandy Darity at Duke University, Ta-Nehisi Coates, these are the kind of people that we're talking about. Obviously, all of them should be descendants of slaves. My proposal, as you said, is $200 to $500 billion, which would be dispersed over a period of 20 years. The stipulation on the part of the American government would be that the money is to be used for purposes of economic and educational renewal. And I remind you that the money itself is an economic stimulus because this is going right out there to help people so that they will further actualize and manifest their own economic potential. In terms of where do we get the money, it's our money. This is a canard. We have the money. What we need to stop doing is giving it to a tiny portion of our population the way we have been doing with such things as the 2017 $2 trillion tax cut, where 83 cents of every dollar goes to the top earners, corporate and individual. I want to repeal that tax cut. I want to put back in the middle class tax cut. We should stop such things as subsidies. $26 billion that we gave in subsidies alone to the fossil fuel industry last year. The United States government should be able to negotiate lower drug prices. And also, I think, while the military should have every penny that it needs for legitimate security concerns as determined by the military, there's a lot of money on top of that which has little to do with their needs and everything to do with short-term profits for defense contractors.
So one final question in our closing minutes here. When it comes to the conversation, the national conversation about race,
yes.
how much does the messenger matter here? I'm talking about on the Democratic side, when there are calls for unity, for instance, is that message received differently, you think, when delivered by a Marianne Williamson versus, say, Cory Booker?
Well, Cory Booker, I think at Cory Booker, it's important that he speak to this issue. And it's important that Marianne Williamson speak to it too. You know, I'm a Jew. And it was Christian people who hid Jews in their basements. I mean, anytime there is a people that needs to be spoken for, it is often the people not from that group whose voices carry a lot of moral weight too, and is a part of the process.
All right, Marianne Williamson, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.